Hey, how's it going, network team? This is Brandon from the 70 Group, and I'm joined with a special guest today. We have Alain Monroy. He is an Army veteran and now Director of Global Partnerships with the Las Vegas Knights. Welcome, Alain.
Thanks, Brandon. Great to be here.
Yes, sir. So, a lot of times we do these pay it forward. So it's an opportunity for our transitioning service members and our veterans to be able to see folks who are walking in the path that they're looking to walk into. There's nothing new under the sun. So we like to be able to drop some key nuggets and maybe some inspirational information to be able to help folks in their transitional period.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Alan, I would definitely like to get started with just understand a little bit more about, what was your pathway into the military? What made you join service?
Yeah, so I'm first in my family to serve in the armed forces. I come from an immigrant family. My family's Cuban. I'm first generation to be raised in this country, so always had a sense of service. Always wanted to help and give back. I didn't know that the military had all the opportunities that it ended up having for me, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today, probably. But yeah, just tried it out in college. I joined ROTC, and it was just a phenomenal fit from a leadership perspective to just having all the opportunities that we had during the summers while still going to college, right? As those that have done ROTC and still get to have somewhat of a college lifestyle. Just really enjoyed it and knew that the Army and the military was for me. And instead of going to a typical internship, I was jumping out of helicopters in the summers. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh wow. So what was your MOS?
So I commissioned as an artillery officer, 13 Alpha, out of ROTC.
Okay, too
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
And all right. And so while you were in service and, everybody comes to that point, I recently separated from active duty and I'm now in the reserve component. But while you're in, did you envision yourself doing the 20 years or did you already have a sight picture? Hey, this is something else I want to do once I finish my contract.
Yeah, that was definitely the plan. So I went through ROTC here locally at UNLV. Go Rebels! So it's great to kind of my life came full circle. But had phenomenal mentors in ROTC, mostly combat arms guys that really showed me the way. And I knew I wanted to do career. I wanted to go as far as I could, and never really thought about doing anything outside, right? But there's the plan, and then there's what really happens.
Mhm.
But while I was in, that was the plan to really go all the way. And then once I got to the senior captain level, I decided that it wasn't going to be a career path for me. I didn't see myself in that world much longer. I'm super thankful for everything I did in the military. Obviously, it's the foundation of everything that I am and everything I've done. But I wanted to challenge myself in other industries, and then I decided to get out back in end of 2015.
Okay. And so when you went through that transitional period, did you already have a sight picture of what you wanted to do, or did you try out a couple different options? Or
Yeah, it's so, I still coach and mentor veterans to this day, and I try to give back as much as possible. And it's just an overwhelming process, right? Getting out of the military, and it almost never stops. I keep saying that you're always transitioning as a veteran. But even back in 2015, there were so many options, there's so many things to consider. So I really just talked to as many people as I could to figure out what I wanted to do, where did my skills and attributes line up to potentially be able to create value and add value to an organization. And at the time, I was a poli sci undergrad, right? I was going to go to law school. I didn't know anything about finance or accounting, and I ended up going to work for JP Morgan Chase in their rotational program, their military executive rotational program, which was a phenomenal entry to corporate America, a lot of support within the veteran community. Ended up going in the commercial bank, but I never thought that I would be working for the world's largest bank, becoming a vice president in the commercial bank, managing large companies. Never thought that was going to be in my future, especially coming right out of the military.
Mhm. Okay, well that's pretty amazing. And so how did that that pathway, right? Because I think that's completely, I wouldn't necessarily say 180, but kind of a 180 going from JP Morgan and a global bank, you know, in that industry, and now transitioning over to the Las Vegas Knights. So how'd that happen?
Yeah, so there's a lot more similarities than you think. So at the end of the day, finance jobs, especially client-facing jobs, are very sales, business development focused, right? So a lot of prospecting, creating pitches, selling your product, meeting people, networking, building relationships, cultivating those relationships. So a lot of the skills and attributes are the same. And that's actually where I was introduced to the sports industry. While I was at Chase, we managed some sports accounts locally. And I realized, wow, there's all these jobs in sports in the back office where you're not, front office with the GM and managing players, but you're in the back office earning revenue, marketing, operations, everything you can think of, including finance and accounting, right? We have folks that are finance and accounting for the team. So I always grew up playing sports, always passionate about competition and being part of a team and the loyalty that comes with wearing the jersey of the team. And so I decided that was probably going to be my path. Now, at the time, I didn't have the experience or the skills. I mean, maybe a little bit of the skills, but definitely not the experience to break into the sports industry, because it is a very tough industry to break into. And a lot of people grow up in the sports industry from school, then become interns and kind of work their way up. So to make it in at a more senior level is very challenging. So I knew I had to go another path and kind of supplement that experience that I didn't have. So I ended up going in the nonprofit sector for an organization called Year Up, which is a workforce development nonprofit. And I was managing large partnerships there. And again, I say partnerships, sponsorships, kind of the same thing, right? And then I was there for 2 years, and an opportunity opened up with the Vegas Golden Knights. And again, this is my hometown. So everything from a timing to the networking to my skills at the time and my experience just lined up for me to come in. And I've been here almost a year, and I think we've had a pretty good year if you've heard kind of how it ended. So
Definitely, I definitely think so. You know, and we're gonna get into that too as
yeah,
well.
for
Um,
sure.
so another question I want to ask, kind of what we've been chatting about, was there any particular, would you say, between that transitioning, going into, you know, from the nonprofit into the Las Vegas Knights, were there any barriers you faced or things that you could that you know?
Yeah, so there's a lot of barriers of entry, and not in any kind of malicious way, but again, there's a lot of demand for the sports industry, right? A lot of people, I guess supply, depending on how you want to put it, but a lot of people want to work in the sports industry, right? And there aren't enough roles for every team or league to hire everyone that wants to be in the industry, obviously. So there's a lot of barriers when it comes to experience, right? So the most important thing you can do if you do want to be in sports, but really any industry, is being able to tell stories of how your background and how your achievements in whatever industry you're coming from, whether it be the military, banking, nonprofit, sports, how they relate to you creating value for that organization. How are you going to be able to walk in day one, especially at a more senior level, to be able to create immediate value, create an impact, and meet the goals of that organization, right? And having those stories and having that experience line up with the job that you're going for is key, right? There's only so much we can do as having a military background. We can talk about the leadership, we could talk about the operational experience, we could talk about the op tempo, our resilience, all of the amazing things that veterans bring to the table. No one's taking that away. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to perform that job function at a high level. So you really have to get your kind of your background and your stories lined up so that you are desirable once you're in front of a hiring manager that may or may not know anything about the military. So
That's very true, and that's good information. And so, getting into that piece, as far as the Stanley Cup championship, well, what was that feeling like for you when you guys, you know, uh, won that game?
yeah, well, I was going to correct you early on, but we are the Stanley Cup champions, Vegas Golden Knights. That's the official name now. No, I it's really hard for me to describe what that feeling is, not just from a winning perspective, right? But this is my hometown. This is where I grew up. I didn't grow up with sports teams, right? We didn't have any professional sports teams while I grew up, so I had to cheer for teams all over the country. So the fact that I grew up here, I went to UNLV, I served in the military, came back full circle to work for the team. First year with the team, we win the championship. Uh, the sponsorship team is doing phenomenally well. Our team as a whole just has knocked it out of the park. I remember there was a moment during Game 5 where the clock was kind of winding down, and we knew we were going to win it, and it was like everything stopped for a second, and I just took a second to really just take it all in and just think about that 8-year-old Alan, right? That little kid, never imagining that I would be working as a director for this team while we're winning the Stanley Cup and bringing the first Stanley Cup championship to Vegas. So hopefully that paints a picture, but I can't really describe what it's like unless you kind of experience it. And then, of course, the events that follow with the guys lifting the cup and having the original Misfits be part of that celebration, and then going and planning our parade and actually being on the parade in my hometown with millions of people on the strip, just really brought it all together. And it's been one of the best years of my life, for sure. But definitely the last couple months have been extremely, extremely rewarding. So
That's really amazing. I really think that's the stuff movies are made of,
100%, 100%.
Yeah. So, last question I have for you. I want to be respectful of your time. Is there, other than the information you've already given, which was golden key nuggets, can you share any other tips or advice for veterans who are looking to pursue a career in the sports industry?
Yeah, so there's others like me out there that have kind of broken into the industry at a more senior level without necessarily the right experience within the industry. So I always tell veterans, doesn't matter what you want to do, whether it's sports or whatever industry you want to go into, follow your own path, right? If there isn't a path, then create one, and then once you're there, pay it forward, right? No pun intended. For others to follow in your footsteps, and that's what I've done. I've tried to help as many veterans as I can to break into the sports industry, not only in the NHL, but in other leagues. I've tried to connect with as many veterans within the sports industry as possible. We try to have regular check-ins with each other to see who we can help and how we can kind of, again, continue to pay it forward for others. But my main advice is just spend a lot of time figuring out who you are as a person and as a professional. Where do your skills and attributes line up with your passions so that you can give back in a meaningful way in the industry, again, whatever industry you want to work with, and spend time really getting to know the stories and really embodying the feeling that comes with telling those stories. Just like I told you the story of being a champion, right? Those are the types of stories that are going to get you to stand out when you're in these interviews, when you're talking to the hiring managers. What success stories do you have? What deals have you worked on? What experience do you have? And how are you translating those skills to effectively communicate, hey, I belong here? And then once you show up, you really have to go to work and show up and be the best you can. And we know that veterans always are up to the task. So I have no concerns that's going to be the case. But you really have to set yourself up to get to that level, and it's not easy, but it's worth it for sure.
100%. Definitely, that resonates with me. Being in the military, I think any of us being in the military, that one key common factor, we all have those core values, right? And we want to stand for something. So give me something good to stand for, and I think you're going to have a great veteran within your organization.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, I want to thank you for your time, and I will correct myself. The Stanley Cup champions, Las Vegas Knights. Appreciate you so much for being on.
Thank you, Brandon. It's been a pleasure, and go Knights, go.
Go Knights, go.
Take care.